Let's get hyped. Welcome back to another Nebraska football season. This one actually follows a bowl game, which is the first time in HypeCast history. I don't even know how we're supposed to follow that up, but we will. And it is time to get hyped for Nebraska's season opener against Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. I am Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruns, joined by Brian Christopherson. We, of course, are Husker247. And this week, our special guest, with no Illinois on the schedule, we thought, who could fill in such an important role, and who else but Kevin Sjuts. Kevin, welcome back to the HypeCast, a HypeCast veteran, a HypeCast listener. We appreciate having you on here today to get us fired up for the 2025 season opener.
It's an honor and a privilege. Gentlemen, thank you for having me on. And it's crazy to think that there's going to be Nebraska football this week.
It feels like it's football season, though, right? Like it feels like we're here.
The change in temperature certainly helps over the weekend. And this week, it's going to feel like fall. And I think we have all hit that. We're far past the point of fatigue with the fall camp and preseason storylines. And we have exhausted about every single angle, I believe, with this Nebraska football team. And now we just need to see them play another team.
All right. Well, we will get to see that on Thursday. But before we get there, we got to dive into what it's all going to look like. And we start, as always, on the offensive side of the ball. And so we'll just we'll lob an easy one to Brian Christopherson here to get things going. Brian, what is Nebraska's offense going to look like in 2025 with Dana Holgorsen, Dylan Raiola, and the rest of this crew? Just lay it out there for us.
Well, I don't know for sure. I mean, the biggest topic that we heard all fall camp was making the routine plays routinely. I mean, that was the summation of what Dana Holgorsen wanted from his guys, and basically drilling into their heads, just do the routine stuff, do it well and with consistency, and those will turn into explosive plays. A guy's going to spin out and take that catch that's maybe it's a 6-yard out, but he spins out and it turns it into a 55-yard touchdown. Those are the sort of things that have he's the message he's really wanted to get across to those guys. I expect we're going to see Dylan. I think that like stuff we don't even know what's going on, like the pre-snap game on Thursday is going to be really interesting, and just how much Dylan has grown in sort of dissecting what the defense is doing and where Nebraska can take advantage of it. And as Matt Rule said, his biggest plays might not be like a highlight on Sports Center. It might be that play where he adjusts to what the defense is doing and he flips it out to Emmett Johnson in the flat and it goes for 35 yards. So honestly, I think it's that sort of stuff where we're going to see if the growth, how much growth there's been from Dylan in this offense about making some of that simple stuff, and that simple stuff will become big stuff.
Kevin Sjuts, who is a player that you're excited to see? It could be a returning guy, could be a new transfer player, could be a freshman that you're excited to see on Thursday in this offensive look that Nebraska should have moving forward. Could just be Dylan Raiola. Could be the easiest answer on the board if you want.
Well, that seems kind of lazy, so I don't want to be lazy for you guys. I got to bring it. It's the season opening week. Dylan would be a great, easy answer, but I'll say just wide receivers in general. I just think that that room has upgraded more than any other spot on the team, in my opinion. And I don't want to just say Dane Key, because I think he's probably going to get, 8 to 10 targets on Thursday. But it goes beyond Dane Key. Ja'Cory Barney Jr. is going to be a year better and a little bit more comfortable in Dana Holgorsen's offense. And then they bring in Cortez Mills and Isaiah Hunter, and Quinn Clark might get on the field this week. So I'm really excited to just watch the wide receivers work. And it's not catching the football. It's also being able to have some reliable downfield threats and just the route running of this group, because we've heard so much about how Dylan just has more options this year in the pass receiving game. And though the tight ends will work their way into that conversation as well, my eyes Thursday going to be on the wide receiver group, Dane Key and the gang. I want to see what they're all about, see what the talk's all about. I think that it's going to be noticeably better than a year ago.
Brunt, I think it'd be remiss if we didn't give you the first tight end question of 2025, because you are the guy who loves to pick them to click. You love to give them oddly specific objectives week in and week out. And I think you kind of love this group. What do you make of Nebraska's tight end room that suffered an important injury with Mac Markway, but also brings back Luke Lindenmeyer, who it seems the staff loves, Heinrich Harburg, who might be one of the more intriguing offensive pieces Nebraska's had in years because of his skill set, and then Carter Nelson, who quietly returned from injury and is essentially a unicorn, and we don't know exactly how Dana Holgerson's going to use him. What do you make of this tight end room?
Yeah, love is probably a little strong at this point, but I think
strongly like.
Strongly is a little strong. I do. That group in particular, I'm eager to see how they get used in the opener because, like you said, I mean, you've got Lindenmeyer, who is more your traditional tight end, but I think also can be a weapon in the passing game, especially with the trust that he's been shown by Dana Holgerson since he's been at Nebraska. Harburg, Marcus Satterfield says he's a completely different tight end than he was in the spring, as you would probably expect from a quarterback moving to tight end and having a little bit more time for growth and practice. And, I think he and Nelson are probably – there's more fluctuation with how they're going to be used. I think there's a little bit more creativity you're going to see there. But, I think early on at least, we're going to need to see that group do some blocking. Because Lindenmeyer, I think, can do it, but is Harburg ready for that? Is Carter Nelson ready for that? Do they even go further into the depth a little bit with an Ingerson or Caden Echternock, somebody like that? I think there's that group more than a lot on offense right now is just kind of a wait and see because there's a ton of potential there, but also just with the personnel, I think it kind of opens itself to some non-traditional type use out of that position.
Kevin, what are your expectations for Dylan Raiola in year two? I mean, he was a true freshman and started 13 games for a Power 4 school. Nobody else did that last year. Few quarterbacks have actually done that in the last 5 years. The overall numbers don't look great, but what was put on his shoulders was a lot. And he had, by all accounts, a strong offseason. What do you think it could look like in year two? And what do you expect it to look like?
I think it could look like a lot like it did in the first couple of games of last year. If you remember, midway through his freshman campaign, Dylan, we don't want to call it a slump, but it was just some of those freshman growing pains. But early, when he debuted at Nebraska, played really well. And I think that fans kind of started to fantasize with what number 15 could possibly do at Nebraska. And then the decline happened a little bit. But I expect early Dylan of 2024 to be constant Dylan in 2025, but even better. My expectations, to give you a number, I think that he's going to complete 70+% of his passes this year, partly because Dana Holgerson, as BC mentioned, has preached about making the routine play. And so I think it has been drilled into Dylan's head to not force the ball, take the check down, especially with the weapons he has around him, whether it is out of the backfield, whether it's the tight ends, whether it's the wide receivers. He doesn't need to make a spectacular play. So I expect the completion percentage to go up. I expect the interception number to go down. And then I think he's going to run the ball a little bit more than he did a year ago. And some fans may not like that because there is a drop off on the depth chart between quarterback 1 and quarterback 2. But his body seems to be built better to run the football effectively this year. So I guess those are 3 clear expectations I have for Dylan Raiola this upcoming season. 70+% completion percentage, a decrease in turnovers, and then running the ball a little bit more effectively.
Speaking of running the ball, Michael Bruntz, what do you make of Nebraska's kind of offensive line and how they're set up to sort of move the ball on the ground in 2025? With only one, well, who knows how many new pieces? We're not sure. We'll find out on Thursday what exactly that looks like and if that carries over into the subsequent weeks. But it's a different looking offensive line for sure.
It's different. It's interesting though. I mean, like the conversation the last few weeks it's been slid in there a little bit about how Nebraska's one of the younger teams in the Big Ten and how they're lacking experience at certain points, but Look at that line. I mean, they're old where they need to be. They're old up front. There's a lot of continuity there. You added Rocco Spindler to the mix. The tackles, we'll see what that looks like at 8:00 on Thursday in Kansas City. But running the ball between the tackles is a big emphasis for Nebraska this spring. They repped it a ton. I think Justin Evans, I think that move to center is going to be good for Nebraska ultimately. And I mean, you just watch that group during warm-ups and during fall camp. It's an impressive looking group. Like I don't recall a Nebraska offensive line looking the way that this one does in recent years. So the fact that they've got, I think, a pretty good starting five, depending on how the offensive tackle picture shakes out. I think you still have some depth behind the starting five as well if you need it, but they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to do it with consistency. And, I do think that's an area where you should see some improvement. I mean, even last year when Daniel Holgorsen came in, just the way that they were choosing to run the ball made that picture look a heck of a lot better with the plays he was calling. So I think with the full off season, I like what that can be. And I like the look of that offensive line going into the season. They're going to have a pretty good challenge early on in Cincinnati's defensive front. Dante Corleone,
The Godfather.
depending on if how they do it at Ellis Island. I think they changed it in The Godfather, but anyways, that's going to be a tall task early on in the middle of that line. But I like the way the offensive line looks.
BC, let's get you back in the mix here. What do we know about Cincinnati's defense? They struggled quite a bit a year ago. They brought in some players to kind of help from the transfer portal. And then Brunt's mentioned him, the Godfather, whom Matt Rule bestowed his strongest compliment that he could, calling him elite. But what do we really know about this Cincinnati group and what's going to be trying to oppose Nebraska's offense on Thursday?
I think they do a lot of slanting stuff, and they play some zone coverage, and Dylan Ryle is going to have to be very mature, like in taking what's there from this defense. And as Brunt said, obviously, first things first, we think Nebraska's interior O-line is a strength of this team. Some would say potentially number one. We're going to see early on how they step up against, a three-time all-conference player. So you got to at least kind of neutralize him. And I think if you do that, that opens up a lot of things against this defense. They've got some new parts on the back end. They've brought in some transfer portal guys, both at wide receiver and in their DBs room, that are probably going to play their first games for the Bearcats. And so that's going to be interesting from their end. We know Nebraska's defense has a lot of new moving parts that we're intrigued to see. I think it's the same thing on Cincinnati's side, where they're optimistic about some young guys that they've brought in and some portal players that can mesh with what they have, but they don't know for sure yet. And so I do think there's some youth and inexperience on the back end of that defense, or I should say more newer parts that you would hope Nebraska's receivers, as well as they've done this offseason, or we've heard they've done, can take advantage of.
Let's dive over to the defensive side of the ball here, and we will start with Kevin Sjuts. Kevin, a lot has been made about how young Nebraska is up front defensively, how much talent they may have, but there's a lot of loss in terms of game reps and experience that went out the door at the end of last season. What have you sort of made of this defensive line group over the last 8 months or so as we build towards this season?
This D-line's a little salty because they've heard it time and time again that there's going to be a drop-off because Nash is now into the NFL and Ty Robinson was drafted, and some of the guys that came on the edge, they're gone now too. But this isn't a group that's completely devoid of experience. Cam Linhart has played. Riley Van Poppel has played. Elijah Judy has played. We've heard nothing but great things about Keona Davis. So I think in their DNA, beyond their physical skills, is a group that is highly motivated, perhaps the most motivated position group on the Nebraska football roster this preseason. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway with the group. They look the part, but everybody kind of looks the part in the preseason. And it's really hard to gauge that until you see them on the field with another opponent. But I do feel like this is a team this is a unit that has worked really, really hard. And clearly it has some leadership up front with Riley Van Poppel, getting a single digit as a defensive lineman, which I guess Nebraska's trying to make that look cool. It still always strikes me, even with Nash wearing 0, that was kind of fun. But when I watch another college football team play and I see a big guy with the single digit, it just looks funny, doesn't it?
Mike Dawson hated it. I know from a few years ago, he felt like it was a personal affront to him as a defensive line coach to see someone running around.
It's just bizarre. But Van Poppel's got 5, and if you're getting a single digit as a defensive lineman, that means that you've done a lot of really good things in the offseason. So I think that he's going to really hold it down and anchor that defensive line.
Brian, what should we make of John Butler as Nebraska's defensive coordinator? We know Phil Snow's going to be involved. We know Matt Rule's a defensive guy, but this is John Butler's chance as being a defensive coordinator at Nebraska. It's a big part of why I think he came here in 2024 when the opportunity presented itself to be the defensive backs coach. We heard Matt Rule say not a lot will change, but things are going to look different. What do you kind of see here for Nebraska's defense? And if there's a specific area, what do you think Nebraska will look differently while doing on Thursday?
Well, it's an interesting question because I think over the whole of this season, I sense they're going to be a little bit more aggressive and I think it's more so just playing your personnel. Like you've got guys like Vincent Shavers and Javen Wright and some of these guys, I think at the second level that you want to utilize in some blitzes and even Deshaun Singleton to that degree. So I think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching, but Thursday's game is interesting because Sorsby is a running threat like some other quarterbacks they won't see. Like, some of the zone read, some RPO stuff. They'll throw some sprint option at you. They did last year and they did it effectively. I think against Iowa State, Sorsby it was 143, 150 yards or something rushing. So he is capable of beating you with his feet. So this is a game where I think they want to be aggressive, but you also have to do it with a certain mindset. Like, hey, we're going to control this pocket. We're going to cage this guy in a little bit. So I think that's going to be a big thing to watch in this particular game. And maybe there'll be changes as you go forward, but it's not letting Sorsby just have these lanes where you just recklessly blitz or you leave open a lane. Like, remember the UCLA QB running for 60 yards last year? I think that's still in some players and coaches' heads over there. So that's something they're very cognizant going into this game about.
Ethan Garbers and Clayton Thorson,
right.
Just 2 guys I will never get out of my head running down the sidelines in Memorial Stadium with no one stopping them. Just unconscionable. All right, Bruns. Second level of Nebraska's defense, the linebackers. What should we make of this group? They have some players Nebraska's excited about that are pretty young, but brought in some veterans in Marquez Watson-Trent and Dasan McCullough. What are we making of the linebackers in 2025?
Yeah, a lot of experience. You mentioned Watson-Trent. I think that was an important addition in that group. The linebacker, I think linebacker rotation, I think they always want 3. They would take 4 if they've got, 4 guys that can step in and do it. But with Watson-Trent, with Wright, with Shavers, I mean, that's 3 pretty good guys that you can throw in there. I think certainly Watson-Trent and I think Shavers too, which we saw in the bowl game, both of those guys are comfortable getting involved in the pass rush. And Shavers was really good in the bowl game of kind of cleaning up, and getting guys on the ground whenever they would get out of the pocket. So I like the look of that. I'm eager to see with the Jack room. I mean, I think probably the top 3 guys, McGahee, McCullough, and Ochoa. I think you're going to see in pass rushing situations, you're going to see multiples of those guys out there together. I think with John Butler's defense, I think the possibility of mixing and matching pieces to create more of those havoc plays, I think you're going to see that. So, I think though the kind of core guys at the linebacker spot, I think you can feel pretty good about, and it's going to be, in a first game of the year, you're always concerned about how good tackling is going to be. With a mobile quarterback, that's something you have to be concerned about at least. But those guys are going to have to play well against Cincinnati. And kind of like you said earlier, I mean, if you've got a leaky play where Sorsby gets out, you got to get him on the ground when you have your opportunity to do so, because he does have the ability to really hurt you with his legs.
BC, I want to get some special teams questions in here as well. Mike Eckler is now at Nebraska returning, but this time as a special teams coordinator. We've heard from him a few times this year already. What are just sort of, fair, reasonable, not pie in the sky expectations for Nebraska special teams in week 1?
Yeah, you start with the kicking game. I think that'll be what people are first drawn to. If there's that 38-yard field goal in the first half, is the snap good? Do you knock it through the pipes? That sort of thing. So I sort of suspect Kyle Kunanen's going to be the guy who gets the first crack at it there. The ball does come good, well off his foot. The snaps, I think, have been getting better this offseason with Kevin Gallick doing it. So that's the first thing. Beyond that, I think it could be a shock to the system if Nebraska actually returns like 3, 4, 5 punts, even if they're not. I'm not talking about like a house call. I mean, that'd be awesome if it happened, but like, even if they try their hand at it, like returning like 4 or 5 punts, like Mike Eckler said, he wants Nebraska to lead the country in attempts, in the punt return game. And considering what it's been the last few years, that would definitely be a jolt to our system if you start to see that, where they're at least trying to make something happen with that. The other thing I think you're looking for in an opener on special teams is, who are those guys? Maybe they weren't even on the depth chart initially, or their second or third team, who are on those units who pop up and they make something happen. Like they make a big stick on the opening kickoff or something, and they use that to kind of announce themselves. Mekhi Bayer did that a couple years ago at Minnesota. Remember in the opener, he went down and he just hit a gopher, hit the tar out of him, and he started getting more snaps as the season went on. So I think that's something I'm kind of looking for, is on those coverage units, who sort of pops out there.
Kevin, I gave you this question, I believe, on offense. I'm going to do it again on defense. Give me a guy you're excited to see playing for Nebraska's defense on Thursday. Could be a returner, could be a new guy, could be a starter, could be someone who comes in a rotational role.
Williams Nwaneri. And that's not just a flex because I can actually pronounce his last name after listening to it on the audio file about 15 times. It's not spelled like Nwaneri as you would expect it to be. He's a former 5-star guy and went to Missouri, started his career there, and barely saw the field. And apparently he has just flourished under this coaching staff. So the strides he's made, and by all accounts, it sounds like he's going to be a part of the rotation. I don't know that a lot of fans are aware that there's a 5-star that could be very productive up front, and especially in the pass rush game, because there is opportunity. If you can rush the passer, there is opportunity to get on the field and make a name for yourself with this team, with the makeup of the team. So that's my guy. I think Williams Nwaneri. I'm excited to watch him play on Thursday and then throughout the course of this season, because clearly he has a skill set that a lot of coaches saw when he was in high school, and then it kind of vanished last year, whether it was the environment, whether it was the transition to being a college student athlete. Don't know. But apparently some of that stuff is back, and he's in a good mental space and ready to be productive here in Nebraska.
Michael Brunt, we'll finish up with the defensive side of the ball with this. We know this wants to be a havoc defense. On Thursday, do you think Nebraska has a better chance of forcing more pressure on Sorsby, Cincinnati's quarterback, or forcing turnovers on the back end? More sacks, more turnovers, or takeaways?
I will go sacks. I think they're going to scheme up some stuff to give them some issues. So I will go sacks before turnovers. Although one begets the other, right?
Can be.
Hopefully.
Can absolutely be that way. What leads you to that conclusion?
I think I don't know that it's necessarily personnel driven. I think Nebraska is going to give Cincinnati some different looks. that are going to cause some issues. I do think, though, having said that now, I guess, I do think Nebraska has some pieces that they can put on the field together that can cause some havoc. So I think I'm confident that John Butler is going to scheme something up, and I think he's going to be pretty aggressive. I'm expecting that, especially on third down. But I do think with McCullough, I think McGahee's got to be in that conversation just based on the small sample size and how effective he's been. But I think they've got guys that can get after the quarterback. So I'll say sacks first.
Prediction time. Everybody loves this part of the podcast. We'll start with our pick to click, and we'll go right back to Michael Bruntz. Who is your pick to click Thursday night in Arrowhead on ESPN, 8 p.m. kick, under the lights, college football watching? Who's going to shine?
Dylan Raiola. The comparisons and the being in Kansas City and who plays quarterback in Kansas City and who Dylan kind of looks like. It's going to get nauseating, I promise you. But I am expecting a strong debut from him. This offseason seemed very comfortable. He's reshaped his body. They've gotten better around him. I think he's going to make good decisions. And so I'm going to go with Dylan Raiola as my pick to click.
We'll move right down the line.
Earlier, Kevin didn't take the layup. I have no qualms about taking the layup.
All right. Well, we'll go to Kevin Sjuts for the three-pointer here in the corner. Who's your pick to click?
Bruntz, that's just great. You're really getting everybody hyped by saying it's going to be nauseating with the Mahomes Raiola thing, but what a great prediction because everybody knows what is coming. So I'm going to go to the guy that Raiola is going to hand the ball off to. I'm going with Emmett Johnson. I could see 100-burger from him. He's back in Nebraska, and he is as much in the spotlight of this team as Dylan Raiola has been. And everything in the offseason, just throwing himself into the community and just being a part of everything and embracing his role as Nebraska's lead running back. He's had a really good camp and sounds like he's been very explosive in the preseason. So I'm going to go with Emmett Johnson, and also because he has the same favorite Raising Cane's order as my son. Box combo, no slaw, extra toast, got to get the extra sauce. He nailed it with that. So big fan of Emmett Johnson because of his Cane's order.
I'm a big fan of anyone who passes on coleslaw. All right, BC, who you got?
I'll go defense since the guys are hoarding the offensive players. I'll say Dasan McCullough. I just think
Kansas City native.
Yeah, there's that too. And I just think he is excited about how he fits in this scheme. I think Phil Simpson and him have really meshed well, sort of on a similar mission, both to prove something. Phil Simpson as a new, full-time coach, and Dasan here in his final year of college football. And there's been a lot of talk about, this kind of connects to Terry Braden and the D-line guys, but about their signature moves, right? Each guy having a move and making the most of it to not just get to the quarterback, but knock the ball out. And so I think that's going to happen in this game. Someone's going to do it, and Dasan McCullough has as good a chance as any of producing that kind of play.
I thought I was going to go offense, but I will join BC defensively here. I just think at the end of this game, the fan base is going to be more enthusiastic and excited about Marquise Watson-Trent. I think he's a guy who's going to rack up a bunch of tackles on Thursday. I think he fits well with what Nebraska wants him to do defensively. He just seems like he's a steady player, and all the talk about him being perceptive as to what offenses are going to do, a guy who spends a lot of time studying the film and has a good football IQ and puts himself in the right position, maybe overcomes some of the physical limitations, and he does it with good, strong, smart football. I think we're going to see that on display a lot, and I expect him to be Nebraska's leading tackler when it's all said and done Thursday night. Oddly specific predictions. If you're a new listener here to the HypeCast, welcome. This is the portion of the podcast where things get a little off the rails. We are going to predict the future. It can be almost anything. We've had broadcast predictions. We've had commentator predictions. We've had, specific yard line touchdowns, seconds left in the half predictions, all of it. wherever the panel wants to go is where it goes. And so we will find out in the opener of 2025 how odd and how specific we're about to get. And so I think because he's hit on, I think, the most of them throughout the history of this podcast, we'll start with Michael Brunt. He was already nodding his head. He knew we were going to start with him. He was prepared. He was ready. Yep. And I promise you, there's no layups in this one.
No, there's not. This is all half-court shots. So earlier this week, I happened to notice on social media that Nebraska's special teams units appeared to make a trip down to Kansas City for the preseason game down there, just to kind of check things out. So I'm going with Archie Wilson. First college football game. A lot of pressure, obviously. I predict that he's going to pin Cincinnati inside their own 20-yard line 3 different times. 3. And of those 3, I think that one is going to be within the 5 to the goal line. The other 2 are going to be inside the 10. It's going to be, there's just going to be like, depending on which foot, there's going to be like fireworks shooting off of his foot every time that ball hits, every time toe meets leather. So 3 inside the 20, actually 3 inside the 10, but 1 inside the 5, the other 2 somewhere between the 5 and the 10. So I think it's going to be a strong debut, and he's going to be everything that Matt Rule said he has been.
In his first professional game of the sport, not even professional, I guess, whatever, we can make that joke later, but first game of the sport in North America, that would be quite the debut. I am going to go next, and I have what is essentially a multiple leg parlay that will happen here. Nebraska will win the coin toss. Nebraska will elect to take the football first. Nebraska will start at the 25, and Nebraska will go 75 yards in 6 plays, never face a third down, and score a touchdown on their opening drive, just getting the fan base whipped into a frenzy to start the season. Brian Christopherson, what do you got?
I got 2. Nebraska had
You don't get any extra points for having 2.
I just feel so confident about them, though. Nebraska only had 1 run last year of 40 yards or more. Emmett Johnson is going to have a 56-yard touchdown in this game, running it. He's also going to catch one. This is not the second one, but he's going to score a second touchdown receiving. That'll be like
sneaking in a third one here for BC.
Well, I'm counting that as the same. It's kind of a double whammy, 10 to 15-yard receiving touchdown. And then the second call is Nebraska's going to hit a 46-yard field goal to end the half. And Eckler is going to jump into the arms of whoever is the left guard. I'm not sure who it's going to be. Maybe it's Machachak on those units. I don't know. We'll have to see. So take note of whoever's left guard on the field goal operation. He's going to jump into his arms, and it'll be caught on camera, his exuberance after they hit going into the half.
I don't know, Kevin. Do these feel oddly specific enough as we get started here?
No, yeah, they're really good. And honestly, what I had lined up for you guys, it's already been discussed, so it's really stupid, and it wouldn't give your listeners anything good, because I was going to go strip sack second half. McCullough's going to score at Kansas City, guys. So, okay, just forget that I even said that, because that's what I had prepared for you. So I'm going to go non-football related. And Bruntz's comment about the nauseating Raiola Mahomes commentary really has my wheels spinning. So we're going to get away from the football game, and I'm going to predict that one of the lasting images of the game of Nebraska playing in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium has nothing to do with the fan base's takeover of that venue, or the fact that Nebraska is going to be playing in that place since 2006. It is going to be a viral picture after the game of Taylor Swift, who was sitting in one of the boxes with Travis Kelce, who is an alum of Cincinnati. So that's why she's there. But there's going to be a photo of Dylan Raiola with Taylor Swift that the fan base, the females in Nebraska's fan base, will be fawning over for weeks on end. Taylor Swift with a red, let's go yellow, some sort of yellow top, and Raiola is post game with the catapult thing still on his chest. The catapult, which measures your heart rate. That's my prediction.
That's incredible. I think that's That's the first ever Taylor Swift oddly specific prediction on this show. So
Hopefully the last.
congratulations to
got a
Kevin
chance.
Sjuts for breaking barriers here on the Huskers 24/7 Hypecast. All right, it is prediction time. Give me the score. If you give me the score, you should also give a winner. Don't just give me a couple numbers without saying who wins. We'll go to Kevin Sjuts. We'll give you the honors. First pick of the season.
I'll take Nebraska winning this game, 30-13. Nebraska over Cincinnati on a Thursday night to kick off the 2025 campaign.
BC.
Nebraska 31, Cincinnati 20. I actually think they'll start really strong on offense and have 24 at half, and then it'll be kind of a slow burn to the finish line.
2024 all over again in the second half. Are you prepared for?
Well, I'm not saying that's a trend for the year, but that's my first game call. 31-20 Huskers.
You already have questions about Dana Holgerson's second half play calling?
His adjustments, man. What's going on?
BC, or excuse me, Brunt. Sorry.
Nebraska 29, Cincinnati 19. There's some tense moments late, but Nebraska gets it over the finish line. 29-19.
Typical football score.
I will follow that up with a more traditional score of Nebraska 37, Cincinnati 24. I think there's going to be some more points put up on Thursday night. I don't know that I think either defense is going to cover itself in glory, but I like the Huskers' chances to put some points up on Cincinnati and have a nice, comfortable lead, and then have to hold on there a little bit towards the end. So that's a clean sweep for us. Nebraska expected to win per the Husker 24/7 Hypecast. That has never failed you in a week one game before. We will see how it goes. Appreciate Kevin Sjuts joining us here again. Another year of the Husker 24/7 Hypecast, a longtime guest. Kevin, thank you for starting the season off right.
Thank you guys for having me on. We'll see you Thursday in Kansas City.
All right. For Michael Brunch, Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Shaver. We're Husker 24/7. Check out everything we have going on at Husker247.com. Plenty of lead up and coverage before the game, and of course, plenty of coverage during, after, and everything you want and need with Nebraska athletics.